Hi, it's Lori from Coast to Coast Craft Girls coming to you from the West Coast. Today I wanted to share a little bit of a revisit of a card that I made a couple of years ago. This is, they call it sort of a vertical easel card. It's, I don't know if you can see how best to see that, but it gives you the sort of look of the floating sentiment on the top with that easel. And it folds flat. This is the card that I made a couple years ago. It's a 6x6 card. And I had someone, one of my subscribers, look at it and ask if you could make it in a 5x7. And so I thought I'd give it a try. And this was my first attempt, and it does work. I mean, it's a, same idea, 5x7 vertical easel with, I just used florals instead of a sentiment, sort of floating effect. But I wasn't happy with the opening because it's narrow and you don't get much of an opening. And so I'm going to make it this time, and I'm going to widen that opening a little bit and see if I like it better. So we'll just have a little bit of an experiment together, and I'll show you how to make a 5x7 vertical easel. And it'll look sort of like this, but a little bit different. I'm going to use some different florals. This is an Alta Nu stamp set that I colored with my alcohol pens, and I'm going to use the Alta Nu gardenia layering die set on this new one that I'm making. So anyway, so the main part of the work is a 5x7 card. So this is just a standard 5x7 card base. And all I did is I scored right down the middle of the front. So this is scored at 2.5. So you can see, because that whole thing is going to, that's going to create your easel. So as I told you, we're going to do a little experiment. So you can see that this isn't going to work because these points are too deep, so that when you come down this way, it doesn't. So let me show you this way. You can see when those are touching, and so this won't touch the bottom. So I'm going to try something a little bit different. So let's get a new card blank and see exactly how I work. So as I said, we're going to score this down at right down the middle at 2.5, and then we're going to take the ruler and on that 2.5-inch mark, we're going to come down and make a little mark at 1.5 inches. Okay. And then we're going to find the center line on the sides, so that's 3.5. And just make a little mark at 3.5. And then at that 3.5-inch mark, you're going to come in 1 inch and put a little pencil mark from each side. Okay? Get rid of that one and that one. And I don't know if you can see those pencil marks, but there's one here. That's 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1 inch, 1 inch. Okay. Now we're going to we need to score this line, this line, this line, this line, and cut that line. Okay. So to score it, I find it hard to score because on a scoreboard, because I can't see underneath to find the right things. So the way that I do it is, this is just a silicone mat. It's a Mod Podge mat, but I use it to put my hot glue gun on and stuff so things don't make a mess on my desktop. And if you double it over, because this is a glass mat, so it's very hard, but you need a somewhat soft surface. You can use a towel even if you don't have a silicone mat, or like sometimes a self-healing mat is soft enough, a mouse pad, and you basically just put in your score lines and just a gentle touch and just kind of go over it multiple times. And you'll get a nice score line. Then once you have that score line in there, if you want to go back to a scoreboard, that's what it's called, and reinforce them, you can, but I find this actually works pretty well. So if you don't have a scoreboard, or if you, if like me, you find it hard to use a scoreboard when you're in the middle of a card like this, just use your scoring tool and a ruler and a somewhat soft surface underneath. And if you have a really soft surface, you want to be careful that you don't push too hard, because you'll just punch right through the card. Okay. And then we're going to cut from there to there. And I'm going to take my craft knife and a metal edge ruler, because you never want to cut a craft knife against a plastic ruler. And sorry if my head's in the way, but I got to line this up. So get right on your marks and cut across that middle from mark to mark. And I find it easiest to make a number of cuts without pushing down too hard. It takes longer, but I find that I get a better, more controlled cut. If I try to push too hard at once, I sometimes can't stay on the line. So, that away. And now we can erase our little pencil marks. Okay. And now we're going to bend. And these are going to bend down. So you want to carefully push those down, because those score lines are not as good as if you were on a scoreboard, really, I don't think. And you're just going to push that down, and it will naturally do the right thing. So just like that. Okay. And there we go. And that's essentially our card. Now, matting and layering is a challenge. Obviously not the inside, but this side. So the way that I've found that's kind of, I don't know if it's the easiest, but it makes the most sense to me, is I went ahead and mat and layered two 2.5 by 7-inch pieces, or just shy of 7, and they're about 2.5. And I'm just going to measure in and cut just like we did on, on this side, on these. So make sure you get them like that, because that's the direction they go. Flip them over. And we're going to put them together. Where's my ruler? There it is. And go back to and remember, we came down on the center line 1.5 inches. So you want to come down on each center 1.5 and just put a little mark, and up 1.5 inches. Put a little mark. Same on this one. And then you're going to measure, find the center line. And right on that center line, and we came in 1 inch and 1 inch. So put a little mark. And then we're going to basically go from mark to mark. And then we want to draw the center line. And then we're going to cut along all of those pencil lines. And I'm just going to use my scissors. And then you will probably have to trim up the little triangles a little bit, because you don't want, obviously this doesn't account for the score lines, and you don't want them glued across the score lines. Okay, now let's see how I did. So this piece should go right there. Okay, that one goes there. This one goes on here, just like that. Okay, and then I'll show you what I mean about the triangles. So these little triangles are going to go in here, but you don't want them on any of the score lines. So just kind of dry fit them. Actually, that one's going to be fine. And sometimes you have to trim them just a little bit. Like this one, I think I'm going to have to trim. So you can see how, see when I put it in there, it's too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim that off. And you just trim it up a little tiny sliver at a time until it's right. And then this one goes here. Let's try that one. It's going to need a little bit of a trimming. And essentially what the width of the trimming, what you're doing is you're trimming off essentially the width of the score line. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and glue these on and I'll be right back with you. Okay, now as you can see, I went ahead and matte and layered the inside. And this paper is from Crafter's Companion, the Secret Garden paper pad. But before you put these sides on, you want to put your piece of acetate in. This strip is 1 inch wide by 4 inches across, and you're basically going to glue it across that center line, but just on the two sides, not in the middle. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to put a little bit of tape and some wet glue. And you don't want any glue or tape in that middle part. And just center it on over that center seam. And that's what gives you your, where you can attach your floating element in the, so in the blue and white one, that was the happy birthday is on that acetate. I don't know if you can see that. And then in this one, my florals are on that acetate. And that's what I'm going to do on this one, is attach some florals. Okay. And then you want to put that on underneath. So then when you put your layers on, it hides it. Now, before we attach our center, the one thing we do need to put is a stopper. And this is just a 1 inch wide strip of the cardstock with the gold matte and layer. And I just put some foam tape across it to raise it up. Decide which direction you want it. And I put it right out kind of almost to the end. Just like that. Because you don't have a lot of, you don't need much. And with a 1 inch wide strip, you want it just about like that. Okay. Now we're going to attach our florals here. Now to do my florals, I told you I'm using the Altenew Gardenia layering die set. And I've already done one of the flowers, but I saved the other one and I'll put it together. So what I did is I just cut these out of the lavender cardstock, and then I took some dark purple ink and I just kind of went through the center. And if you look at the instructions on how to put it together, it kind of shows you shading locations even. And so you can just kind of follow along that when you're shading as well as putting it together. And then this is the Altenew keyhole set, which I personally love because it makes it so incredibly easy to layer these flowers up. You literally just match up the holes with some glue and they go together. And then the last few layers that don't have, obviously you don't have the holes on everything because then you would see the holes on the top layer and you don't want to do that. But if you just follow the picture, it shows you, like here, you've got these last 3 layers, which are going to cover up your keyhole system. So there's that. Now I got 3 little pieces left. And you can see that this piece goes right down here. I'm trying to figure out which one that is. Oh, right on there. And a lot of times you can also tell because not only do they, for these pieces that don't have the keyhole system on them, you can kind of see, because sometimes on the lower petals, they'll have like a little indentation, but for these tiny little pieces, they generally don't. But you can kind of see where they go. And this is literally the toughest part, is these last few pieces. And you just kind of, if you can position your flower the way that it would go in the picture, you can usually tell. And there we go. Okay. So there's my flowers. And then I've got some foliage, and I just cut this out of green and then inked it with a little bit of dark green ink at the base and around the edges. And I'm just gonna, I don't even think I need both flowers on there, although they're very pretty. Yeah, I think I really only need one. So we're gonna, because you don't want to attach all the way across. You basically want to attach just right in the center, because if you attach all the way across, then when you go like this, it's not going to want to bend, and because as you see it kind of arcs. So if you try to glue all the way across, it kind of doesn't really work, or it'll bend whatever you've got. So you want to just kind of place something right in the middle. Now, the one thing you can do is you could cut a die shape and then add both the flowers to that shape, and then just attach the shape, the one shape to it. But I think you lose some of the sense of the floating element when you do that. Okay, I think I like that. And then put that right in the middle. So, and then it looks like that. And you can see that it kind of is floating. That wet glue is going to take a minute, so I don't want to. And then you can put a sentiment on it. I'm not going to put a sentiment on mine because I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for yet. But anyway, so the person that asked, can you do this 6x6 vertical easel card, which I will link to the original video on this one in the description and at the end of this video. But it works better, I think, on a 6x6. It is possible on a 5x7, as you can see, with this one and this one. But I think I like the 6x6 better. So anyway, thanks for watching.